So you want to buy a retro scrambler? Well, there are loads of great bikes on the market, and so here are my 9 picks in price order ascending. So we'll start with the most affordable scrambler on the market, and that's the brand new SCRAM 411 from Royal-Enfield. At £4,599, it's a heck of a lot of bike for your money, and I was lucky enough to ride it just a couple of weeks ago at the UK press launch. It basically takes the mega popular Himalayan and then gives it some little tweaks to the spec for a bit more road and city bias. So there's a 19-inch front wheel instead of a 21, and because of that it sits a little lower at the front and has a slightly more aggressive geometry that quickens up the steering. I thought it was a big improvement for anybody who's going to be predominantly riding on the road. There's a more comfortable seat too, which was another gripe of mine on the Himalayan, and they've removed the windscreen and all the racks, and it gives it a slightly more sleek and pared back aesthetic. They've also given it some more punchy color schemes, which I guess they're hoping will be a hit with the city crowd, but other than that, the engine, the chassis, the components are pretty much the same as the Himalayan. Both bikes, I would say, aren't really exceptional in any one area. The engine is a bit limp with only 24 horsepower, the suspension's pretty basic, the brakes are certainly on the soft side, but at that price, you can't really complain, and it's a fun little bike. That said, if you've got a couple of grand more, I'd seriously think about the Fantic Caballero 500. Sure, it is a big jump up in price, and you are starting to get close to some seriously good bikes from the major manufacturers, but still, at 6.5 grand, you're getting a great looking little bike with some more serious off-road abilities. You see, Fantic specialize in enduro, supermoto, and MX bikes, but the Caballero lineup takes a similar approach to the engine and chassis, but repackages it with a retro look that references their scramblers from the 70s. The result is something that feels quite a lot like a proper dirt bike. It's got a big thumping single-cylinder engine with about 40 horsepower in a relatively lightweight package at 150 kilograms, and if you go for the rally model, you get 200 mil of travel front and rear. Sure, it's never gonna really challenge a proper enduro bike for trail riding, but if you want something that has proper cool looks, that you can also ride on the road, but then it has serious green lane and gravel riding ability, then this is probably the pick of the whole list. Now next up, it's the Ducati Scrambler Icon, a staple in the retro and scrambler market, and specifically I've chosen the dark edition, which does away with the colourful paint and finishing items to save you a decent wodge of cash, 800 quid to be precise. It seems like a pretty good deal to me to say that you get the same awesome air-cooled L-twin engine which has bags of character and feel, and it has decent enough performance at 73 horsepower and 66 Newton meters of peak torque. You also get decent equipment with a 41mm KYB upside down fork and a 4-piston radially mounted Brembo front brake caliper with Bosch cornering sensitive ABS. Now it's not exactly going to win the Dakar Rally, these are pretty much road bikes with a fairly low slung stance, but you do get the 18-inch front wheel and the Pirelli MT60 RS tyres, and so if you do find yourself on a gravelly or rough back road, combined with the risen up handlebar position and the fairly soft ride, it feels like the perfect bike for the job. Now before we get on to the next bike, I just want to say a massive thanks to today's video sponsor, the Ridge Wallet. Personally, when I'm out riding, I like to carry as little as possible in my pockets, and so this is the ideal way to slim down your money and cards. It'll take up to 12 cards and also some cash on the clip on the back, and yet it's basically no bigger than the cards themselves. I've got the matte black titanium here, also the carbon one to check out, but they've got over 30 colors and styles, so you should be able to find something you like, or the ideal gift for Father's Day that's coming up soon. It comes with a 45-day money-back, no-quibble returns policy, a lifetime warranty, which is awesome, and it's RFID blocking, which means that your contactless cards can't be scanned. They've also been kind enough to give me a 15% discount code for my viewers, which you'll find down in the description below, so once again, a massive thanks to Ridge for supporting the channel. Now, it wouldn't be a list of scramblers without a few triumphs, and this one is their most affordable, the the Street Scrambler. But is it worth almost 1,500 quid more than the Ducati? Well, in many ways, no. There's less power from the 900cc parallel twin, and it's substantially heavier. So if you want the more sprightly machine, I'd say go for the Icon and save yourself some cash. But balls out performance isn't really what the Triumph is about. It's more of a refined retro vibe, and having owned its road bias sibling, the Street Twin, for a few years, I can vouch firsthand for it being a brilliant bike to own. There's loads of torque in this engine, and it's produced super low in the revs, so you get a nice satisfying feeling on the throttle and a very pleasing exhaust note owing to its 270-degree crank. It's also really well finished, as you'd expect from Triumph, and the styling is as close to a classic Scrambler as you'll find on this list. Particularly in the matte khaki paint job for this model year, it looks almost like it could have rolled straight off the set of The Great Escape. Again though, this is more of a road bike than a proper off-road menace, but definitely worth checking out if you want that quintessential retro cool Scrambler aesthetic. Now if you do want something with a bit more of an off-road bias, then along with the Fantic, the Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled ought to be top of your test ride list. It's the same 803cc engine as the Icon, but it's massively jacked up and reinforced to give it more clearance and resilience. So there's 200mm of travel in the suspension, with a chunkier 46mm fully adjustable fork and a rebound and preload adjustable shock. You get a larger 19-inch spoked front wheel with Pirelli Scorpion Rally STR tires, a tall front mudguard, a longer rear mudguard, a sump guard, a headlight grille, a much taller seat height, some extra ground clearance, and a longer swing arm and reinforced frame. And on top of all that good stuff, it looks absolutely banging too. This would be a very tempting prospect to me if I was buying a Scrambler style bike this year. It's not too pricey, but it has a great engine, good spec of equipment, some proper versatility, and the styling is the icing on the cake. That said, BMW have got a couple of good offerings in the form of the R9T Scrambler and the Urban GS. I borrowed the latter for a couple of weeks last year, and I've got to say, I had a heck of a good time on it. It's one of the most powerful bikes on this list, and it also gets a lot of its own character with a flat boxer twin in a market where you get a lot of V-twins or 270 parallel twins. The only thing I will say about these two is that they really are pretty road biased in their standard forms, so you have to get stuck into the accessories catalogue to get it to start looking a bit more Scrambler-esque. I think you'd at least want to be adding some of the cross-spoke wheels and a set of semi-off-road adventure tyres, and so combined they're going to push the price up by about 500 quid. But with those two changes, the Scrambler really does start to look pretty smart. On the Urban GS, I'd do the same, but as standard, it comes with the low exhaust, and so unfortunately that's another 500 quid again for the high option. Still, the result again is pretty special looking, and it's a super fun bike to ride. A smidge over 12 grand though will get you the Triumph Scrambler 1200 XC, and this really is a heck of a bike. It's kind of like if you took the essence of the Street Scrambler but brought the spec thoroughly up to the modern day. There's more power and torque owing to the extra capacity, fully adjustable suspension front and rear, high spec braking courtesy of Brembo and a 21-inch front wheel, and a decent electronics package which you can manage through the TFT display. There's also the XE version for another grand or so, and that adds some extra height and therefore off-road ability, as well as lean sensitive rider aids powered by an inertial measurement unit. Both bikes get plenty of riding modes and plenty of rider aids, as well as phone connectivity with the dash, so you can get navigation prompts, media playback, call handling, and you can even control your GoPro from the switchgear. It really is a capable bike with a list of features that's pretty much on a par with a modern day adventure bike, just in a very nice looking form factor that will be much more to some folks' tastes. Now we're getting to the sharp end of the list, and I thought I'd include one of the Scrambler 1100 bikes from Ducati. That's despite the fact that they must be the most road biased bikes on this list, but still they've got the Scrambler name and some of the styling. My pick of the bunch would be the new Tribute Pro with its 70s inspired color scheme and graphics. Naturally, you get a bit more performance than the 800s with that extra 300 cc's or so of capacity, but do beware, it is quite a bit heavier than the 800, 20 odd kilograms or so. And what I liked about the Icon, if you can cast your mind back to the beginning of the video, is that sort of back road chuckability. Given the price difference as well, I'd definitely be demoing the 800 before I pulled the trigger on this one, just to be sure. But top of the list, in in terms of price, and also top of the list in terms of power, is the bike I've currently got on long-term loan from Indian. It's the FTR Rally. But is it really a scrambler? Well, as you may know, it was developed as a flat track style platform, but this particular variant adds a little bit of travel in the suspension, larger spoked wheels, the Pirelli Scorpion Rally STR tires, the option for a high silencer, and some more retro finishes and paintwork. And so for me, it sits in the scrambler market perfectly. It's a proper hoot to ride. You might not get the same levels of tech and gadgets that you'll find elsewhere in this list, but that's almost the beauty of it. 120 horsepower, 120 Newton meters of peak torque, and yet there are no riding modes and only ABS in terms of safety features, and so that makes for a very fun bike to ride with a chassis that loves to slide when you push it. But it's also not a bad riding position, and it gets cruise control, so I've been enjoying myself massively using it as a daily to get around to press events and filming stuff, especially luggaged up with the pannier and tank bag. The fuel range is a little bit limiting and it takes a while to fill up because of the weird shape of the tank, but that aside, it makes for a cracking ride and the looks are quite distinctive as well. As always, I'd love to know which bike you'd pick though if it were your own money, so do let me know down in the comments below, and if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and I'll catch you next time.